Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session of Continued Learning Groups with the California Alliance for Community Composting. Today, we are going to get a one-on-one demonstration from Tess Feigenbaum, the coder, developer, and artistic extraordinaire of EpicRenewal, which has created a composting app called ECM, the Epic Compost Management. You can see in the chat, I have dropped in the links to go ahead and download the app from the Apple Store or from Google Play, depending on what sort of phone operating system you have. And it is currently available for free. So we recommend that you take advantage of that. And we'll also just help you follow along with today's presentation. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Tess and yeah, let's check out this app. Thanks, Tess.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Tess Feigenbaum from EpicRenewal. I know everyone on this call has, but if you're from the recording and you haven't met us, we're like you community composters working out of Rhode Island, but we're also focusing on the national level challenge of tracking our data and celebrating our impact as a collective of community composters. So the why of why we're doing this work, we've been in this field for almost 9 years, and we're really privileged to have started in California. So the Alliance is really close and near and dear to our hearts. But in doing all of this work ourselves and in getting to work with a ton of amazing community composters, both in California and throughout the country, I'm pretty sure this list is not going to look totally new to any of you. When I'm talking to folks outside of our community, this is how I try to explain to them how complex what we're doing is and how many pieces of data we regularly have to capture throughout our life cycle and our process. When you start adding in all the stakeholders that often need this information, it starts getting really heavy and overwhelming. So folks outside of our field get overwhelmed by the slide to begin with, and they don't even know how much backbreaking labor you're doing all day long and community engagement and talking and supporting people and being present in your communities. So our goal has really been, we see the community composting network. We see how incredible everyone working in this space is. And we want to make it easier to tell your story and celebrate your impact. And we want to make it easier for all of us to fight to be taken seriously, demonstrate our legitimacy, and be included in state and federal level planning. It's also really exciting to be able to connect all our data together. So the CCGS program has been a huge piece of building this software. They're really the platform and the why we were able to do so or even get started on it. But what's been really cool about the CCGS program is that we've been able to aggregate state level data and make a really incredible case for why community composting matters at a state level. So we've been developing this tool with the intention to help make capturing your key data points on site easy, regardless of how many people are working at your compost site. We want it to be easy to summarize your processes, report your impact data meaningfully, and improve your operations. And we believe all of these things are enabling factors to create a platform for growth and scaling. Then when we start factoring in all the stakeholders that you constantly have to report to as you grow or even as you get started, we know with municipalities, being able to estimate how large you can go or how fast you can go is really critical for being included in municipal contracts or having a voice when they're making decisions at a city level or a county level. It also helps us easily align to stated sustainability goals. For funders, if you've got grants that are funding you, being able to report and demonstrate what you're doing with their money and the impacts you're achieving is critical. And I know for plenty of folks in our space, the time spent just aggregating that data and sharing it is often more time than the grant is worth. Major props to all of you. I know how heavy and huge reporting on this grant has been, and it's an incredible, gargantuan, impressive effort of what you all have demonstrated together. As you start scaling, if you get past the 25 cubic yard space and you start needing permitting, you're going to need to be able to prove all the data and that you hit your PFRP temperatures and that you can show everything you did to a pile so that you can sell it, feel confident, and maintain a permit. And finally, the piece you already all are owning and loving is sharing what you're achieving with your community and the folks who are engaging directly with you. And that allows us to spread the story and welcome more people in. So again, we very intentionally focused on this community to start. We'll talk a little more further in the slides, but we see a lot of potential in this tool to support different communities beyond ourselves. It could be large scale, it could be backyard scale. We would really love this to be a tool that democratizes confidence in the composting process. That said, we are enormously confident that the Community Composting Network is the most pivotal place to start, and that empowering this network of folks is how we really move the needle. Local projects like CCGS throughout the state of California, we cost almost half of what the billion-dollar industrial sites cost to launch. We shrink the hauling footprint, we keep everything local. You're building healthy soils and nurturing your ecosystem. You're growing food locally, you're feeding people, you're creating community belonging, well-being. And there's enormous amounts of education and community engagement that come with community composting. And what we've really heard over our experience and other people's experience is the biggest challenges we really have is not doing our job well. It's not composting well. It's not meeting our communities well. We're largely, as a network, pretty good at that. We're uniquely good at that. But when we start getting up to medium scale or needing to grow, there's a lot of growing pains in making the thing sustainable without burning out. And another piece we're really aware of is throughout our research process, before we kind of started really coding this thing, was understanding what stakeholders who are fighting for us need. So this was a conversation I had with an EPA program manager where they essentially told me, I love everything you all do. I see all the work you all do. But for folks who aren't permitted yet, which is not a negative, it just means you're small scale, I can't tell what your impact is because it's not transparent to the state or federal level. I want to be able to go to Congress or the Senate and advocate for why they should spend more money on you and the impact and what it means, but we need the numbers to be able to do that and prove that. So we're hoping we can reduce that barrier and start creating some transparency for folks outside of our network on the incredible work happening in this space. So we've been working on this idea for a really long time, but again, the California Alliance and CCGS have been the most pivotal partner throughout this. 5 out of 6 of these photos are from all the CCGS retreats that happened last year, a little over last year, throughout California. And you can see just the incredible leadership and creativity and amazing value of this network. Being able to join a bunch of these was an enormous gift for me, seeing everybody's sites, meeting everybody in person, and really learning about how you each do things uniquely. If I could have like my biggest dream in the world, it would be the ability to just spend 6 months driving around the country and doing this with every single community composter and looking at the software together and figuring out how to make it perfect for exactly how your site works. That being said, beyond California, we have been working with other folks throughout the Community Composting Coalition throughout the country to think about what we want this to be, what we want it to integrate with, and how we want to use it. From the start with our CCGS research, this was really in round 1, we laid out a really basic user journey of what happens when one of us gets to our compost site. What's really important to note here is that this is not everybody's process. This looks a lot more like if you are running a traditional aerobic batch, if you are running a traditional community composting site, it looks like very consistent, and our lives don't look like this. So the reality is we know there's probably about 10 or 11 of these journeys where if we really had to create common pathways of how we integrate or interact with our site and do our work, we have a hunch we could create a different pathway for each composting methodology and use by talking to a bunch of you, drawing them out, and finding the commonalities. So that's really where we're hoping to go in the next couple of years, is really personalizing these to the way you work. But the way we built this first version was following this pathway and building for this so that it could have the widest range of use. So in November, we officially launched on the App Store. So those have become, both apps have become totally accessible. They're free. They're going to be free for quite a while. And once we do, if we do shift into a paid platform, it will really be reflective of scale. So it's really important to us that this tool is accessible to everyone in the community composting space. So far, we're incredibly proud to say that it's only been funded by community composters and prize funding in pitch competitions. So we've had control over it. And the things that have been done first have been defined by our network and our people and what we need first. So since going live in November, we have 151 people in the database. We have 60 actively engaged users who are continuously using the app, and we have 30 sites created. That's pretty awesome considering the thing is, it's a little glitchy. It's not perfect. It's got a lot of room to grow and shift and change. But we have a lot of people who are willing to play with it. And so far, we've only within the CCGS cohort really launched it with a pretty rigorous testing cycle with all of the regional program leads. So a bunch of folks have played with it at a high level and really gave us some useful feedback, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. I'm impressed there are people who are using it on a daily basis. That's really cool that it works for them. I can tell you for myself and my own composting process, it's still a little not right for my user journey. So it's a little clunky for me to use on a daily basis. So we're fully aware that in asking you to play with it, it may not look for you like something that you're ready to use every day. But if you can try it out for one day on your site or a couple days on your site and figure out exactly what doesn't work for you or what you wish it could do, that kind of information is so helpful for us to prioritize exactly where we put our effort and time next. From the Community Composting Coalition and primarily from CCGS regional leads, we got really useful feedback about creating customized feedstock and unit options. For instance, I always use a 27-gallon Home Depot clip top container for my wood chips, and I don't know what that weighs. We could potentially set like a standard where you can input your own units like that, where that 27-gallon roughly weighs this, you check it one time, and then it's an autopilot fill. There's a lot of ideas to make the functionality fit more smoothly with the way that we do our work. Everyone who has used this has been critically valuable in helping us find glitches and errors. There are constantly tiny pieces that shift or change. Today, for instance, we very recently had an update on the app because the offline functionality wasn't working right. And in that happening, it broke all the drop-down menus for me. So I'm not sure if that's specific to my iPhone model or iPhones altogether or some other variable. So anything that's broken, we learn a lot from exactly who sees that breaking point. It's working fine on my co-founder Baba's Android, and I haven't heard about it from anybody else. So anytime you're finding something that's breaking, not working right, let us know and give us as much detail as possible because it helps us diagnose where it's coming from. And most importantly, everyone in this community has shared enormous ideas and opportunities to grow and improve and expand upon it. So we've been really privileged to get to work with all of you, and we definitely consider this created by, with, and for all of you. Courtney, I'm not able to see the chat, so I'm going to rely on you to interrupt me if there's something to answer there.
No worries. It's just me posting in the chat over and over again the link
Awesome.
to how to download the ECM from the Apple Store or from Google Play, depending on what type of phone you have.
Fabulous. And if you go to our website at epicrenewal.org/ECM, there's more info on the app and there's download links there too. But you will find it by searching Epic Renewal in either store. Unfortunately, it's titled Epic Renewal, so it's a little easier to find that way. But if you're struggling to find it, give us a holler. You should be able to just install it and have it ready to go. So what I'm hoping we can do, and I'm going to try to rail through this kind of quickly so we can focus on questions and ideas, is walk through how to use the app. Again, I'm going to note on most of these slides, there's notes at the bottom of what's coming next or what's down the road. And these are considerations we're already aware of. So you can just know in your head, it's not something we necessarily need to hear about unless you have a new idea with it. There's things here that are like blatantly obvious to all of us. So I've tracked stuff in there just so you kind of know where we're at and what you can expect. Most of that stuff is new functionality that's coming in our next round. So if you install the app, the first screen you're going to open is going to look pretty similar to this, except it's going to have two additional options now. One option is going to be set up a login, and that lets you set your own username and password or continue as guest. I will note, if you choose to continue as guest, we can't guarantee we're going to be able to pull your data for you after the fact once you log out. because it's not associated with any email. So that's going to be a little funky, but if you want to just play with it anonymously, that's a way you can do that. Down the road, that will be a little more useful when we're inviting people to sites and tracking data that way. But right now, the guest feature is going to be funky. So if you want to be able to log out and log back in and play with it and see the same data and the same sites and batches, that one option is going to be a little bit of a barrier to doing that. All right, so once you log in whatever form fits you, you'll come to this My Sites page, and I'm going to refer to this as our site dashboard, and I'm going to refer to the next page we look at as our batch dashboard. The site dashboard will show you every site that you're part of. And as we go forward, we're going to be able to invite other people to our sites. So you can invite all the volunteers or community members or staff members working with you on your site, and you can all share the same site and batch data and update it together. But the really important piece on this slide I want to point out is this profile icon in the top right. This is the fastest way to contact us or give us feedback without having to do a two-step to your computer. So if you click this button, you go into your account details. You're able to change your password if you have a password login. You can see our privacy policy, terms and conditions, delete your account if you want to, and log out. If you log out, your data will still be here associated with your email. But most importantly, if you press this Contact Us button, it'll give you a little short entry text form. It allows you to do it quickly in app. So if you're on site and just experience something funky, that's the place to do it. What's going to happen is that's going to go straight to my inbox or Baba's inbox. So don't worry about it being formalized. Don't worry about explaining who you are. We'll be able to see your email unless you've hidden that. So if you have hidden that and want us to get back to you, please include your name and email so I can. But basically throughout this entire presentation, I'm going to reiterate 80,000 times that any and all feedback is enormously helpful. So don't worry about polish. Don't worry about the way you say it. Don't worry about how nitty-gritty or specific it is to you. It's all valuable to us. We want to make this useful for all of us. So the first thing you can do, now that you know how to immediately send a message out if something's not working right, is from the site dashboard, you'll see this Create New Site button. And this will take you to this page where you can put in a name for your site, an address, and any notes. A good way to think about the notes function throughout the entire app is this is really use as you will. Use as is useful for your team, what's going to be most important. This is the stuff that's going to show up when you send this as an invite to another person to join your site. So it might be notes about how you find the location, what the lockbox number is, whatever info someone else working on the site is going to need. Use this however you want to use it. The address is not important right now. It will show up on your site page. However, if you do include it, and we have it down the road, we're hoping we'll be able to include information like weather data and stuff like that, so we can cross-compare it across our actual activities and see if there's, if there's a heavy rain day, having that automatically recorded would be nice to know without you having to go in. So that's really what this address function is for. It's for helping either team members find your site and know which one you're talking about, or it's so that we can build in that weather data. But you will be able to make a site even if you just put a name in and nothing else. When we do have the sharing functionality built, the way it's going to work is you can just send an invite. It'll be by text or email. People can click a button to install the app, and the site will come up for them to join. So once you've created this site, it'll show up here. And you will eventually be able to see really nice dashboards of each site. So let's say I just created this new site. It's showing up on my Sites page. If I click into it, I then go to this specific site dashboard for this specific site. I can now make a batch within it. So a batch is basically the unit of measure we're using for a complete composting process, whatever methodology you use. So even if you use a continuous feed system, we can sit and define what that batch cycle looks like for you. But a good way to think about it is a batch is a single cycle. You can keep a batch going indefinitely if you need to. I'll show you a little bit more about what that means as we go. But again, try to use it however is going to be usable for you or easy or intuitive for you. So when you create a new batch, you can give it a name. For us, we name our batches after the hotbox bin they're going to be loaded into. You will put a start date. It could be today, it could be backdated. And this dropdown will offer a number of different methodologies. It is not all-inclusive. I can tell you where Bokashi fermentation composters and Bokashi is not in this list yet. So if there's something in this list you want to add, let's talk about it. And let's not only add it, but let's talk about the way you do it so I can start building systems that match it. And again, notes in here can be really useful. So same thing, it's really for you. So you could use that notes to be, this is the bin in the back that's painted blue, or this is the bin with mangoes on it. That piece of information is really for you when you're looking at this information or others that you're sharing it with. Right now, the methodology doesn't change any functionality, but as I was saying, we like that to be a determining factor of how you move through the app in the future so that it really lines up with how you do things. So once you've created a batch, you'll be able to see it within your site page. And if you click on it, it'll take you now to this dashboard that is committed fully to that single batch. There's 4 different buttons up top that you can use. There's a temperature summary here that shows the last 30 records of temperature readings. And then there will be summaries of all the other entries you've built. The temperature chart right now has a couple little glitches to it that we're aware of. I will note, if you click one of these, it will show you the temperature and the date of when that was submitted. So you can actually click into these and have a little bit more fidelity than you can see at this level right now. But what's interesting and what we're definitely fixing on our next set of revisions, right now it's going from oldest to newest in this direction. We're going to flip that. It's also only showing Celsius on this graph right now, regardless of what unit of measure you put your data into. So we're going to solve both those things. The other thing we're definitely going to get rid of on this page is this thermometer that, as a composter, doesn't mean a whole lot to us. It's more important that we know when we hit PFRP, when our compost is safe to start curing and distributing. So that's just kind of a thing that's there, but it's not going to stay. If you have an idea for a way to make it more useful, if you do want to keep it, we can. But right now it's kind of a bell and whistle that's not adding a ton. So going into these 4 activities at the top. The first one to be aware of is record data, and this is really recording temperature. So if you click this button at the top right, you'll have the opportunity to add a new data recording. You have a date, you have a temperature, you can set the unit, you could do Celsius or Kelvin, and you can add comments. So for me, often when I'm tracking data at our site, I'll note if something got funky little mushrooms and try to figure out if the feedstock had a part of that or if this one was more moist. Any kind of data or observational data can go in here. Once you have saved this entry, you'll be able to go back to your dashboard page. And if you click here, well, if you don't click here, you'll be able to see the most recent entry you put. If you do click here, you'll be able to see all the entries that have been put. You can edit them, you can delete them here, you can change them any way you need. You'll be able to go in and it'll give you this exact page again. So nothing's permanent. You can always fix and edit things if there was an error. I will also note, if you're playing with it right now or in the next couple weeks, right now it requires a little bit of scrolling to get to like the save button. So be aware of that. That's something we're going to get rid of this little gap here. But you may need to scroll down to actually submit an entry. Add feedstock is the next big button. And this one means what you expect it to mean. It's tracking anything you're adding into your pile. There's drop-down options for different feedstocks. Again, this is another area we got some really fantastic and specific personal feedback too. I believe there's 2 more entries now that are like mixed food waste green or feedstocks brown, like more general high level ones if you want to be less specific. If you have other items you want to add to this drop down, let us know. In the future, we're hoping we can add in, standard bulk density kind of stuff and that other information. But at the moment, this is really for you to know what went into a batch. You do have to add things independently. So if you're adding 1 bucket of food scraps and 1 bucket of wood chips, you have to add those 2 entries separately. So each entry is going to be 1 feedstock. You set the date, you pick what it is. If what you're looking for isn't there, use the other option. And that other option just means you're going to rely on what's in your notes. So often I'll note if we have a particular chunk of feedstocks that's really meaty or fishy or oily, something strange, anything that might be useful to be able to know retroactively when you're looking at why a pile might have gotten weird or a batch might have gotten weird. And again, when we go back to this batch page afterwards, all of these different entry points from all 4 of these options will be displayed here. So you can always go back and edit these, and that's how you do that. In the future, one of the things we know is important for sanity and non-redundancy purposes is the ability to just sync your collection pickup data. So we're hoping to be able to integrate with other tools, but at minimum be able to bulk import from a spreadsheet so you don't have to do all of these feedstocks all the time yourself. Right now, this entire thing is built around the idea of a batch. So you're focusing on what you put into a batch. We're going to be thinking about new functionality about how you track what your collection information is separately, and then try to align those pieces. So we're figuring out exactly how that works. And right now it's a little bit clunky, but bear with us. The action button is for everything else. So if you're turning, if you're adding water, if you're spreading it out, any of those things that don't involve adding new materials, you're going to use the action. And again, if the action you're looking for isn't here, select other and add notes. I don't usually consider like biofilter to be adding a feedstock because it's not doing a ton besides being a filter. So you can decide if that lives there or if that lives in your feedstock category. And again, you'll be able to see it back over here. In the future, you'll also be able to see which user submitted a record. So you can know that Frank is the one who turned the pile last. So if I have questions, I can just text him or call him. And finally, the sift to remove button. It allows you to record anytime you're pulling material out. So if you just sifted an entire batch and you got 50 pounds of beautiful finished compost or material, you can track it that way. If you're going to keep the batch going, continuous feed, or if your biofilters are going to stay in the exact same way, you don't have to finish a batch entirely. You can just sift, remove, and keep this same batch going, and then you'll have the same data in there. The finish batch button will be here in the future. Right now it's not, and I'll show you where it is in a second. But again, in this dropdown, there's a few different options in here. Use the other one if you don't see what you need, and let us know what you want to add. So the finish batch option lets you archive an entire batch. If you're going to go back and change anything on this batch, don't finish it. If you're using the same batch or the same materials, don't finish it. Right now, what's going to happen is when you hit this button, it disappears from the app. And that data is not gone. We can pull it for you. But until we have our bigger data dashboards where you can log in and see everything in one go, it's going to disappear for you from the mobile device. The goal of the finish button is so that if you're on site and you have a different desktop or web-based platform where you can look at stuff in depth when you're sitting at a desk or a computer, we want to make sure we're not cluttering up the space and the options when you're in the moment trying to do stuff. So this will let you get a finished project out of the mix or cycle it back to be a new one. But that's really what the finish button means. And so for right now, I just, if you do finish something by accident and you need that data, give us a holler and we'll help you pull it. And just returning back to the batch dashboard, this is what it looks like after you've added a bunch of data. You can see the different entries, and if you click on any one of these, it'll look like that temperature screen from earlier where you can see a whole bunch of different options, and you can edit all of those. We're definitely going to have a PFRP indicator in the future. It will either be on the graph or the batch or multiple places, but some kind of indicator to say this batch did it, we're there. And we're going to make the summary graph a little bit more intuitive over time. Okay, that was a lot very fast, but I'm going to roll through a couple more slides and then we can open it up to dialogue. I'm most excited always to share what's next because we have really big dreams for this and we're very aware it's not there yet. It's not perfect. It has a lot of room to grow and expand. And we're also aware that it has a lot of opportunity to be applicable to other audiences beyond ourselves. So in our next round of development, which we're hoping will be this year, and our biggest barriers here are really, it's funding and time and putting the team together. So each of our sprints is dependent on being able to find the right supporters behind it. But when we do have those things lined up, we're just ready to go and we're eager and excited. And we're so excited to make this valuable for everybody. So our first priorities when we get back to it are going to be launching those data dashboards that have more detailed history and the ability to export share. So pulling a quick report from your entire site of what's been going on there or pulling an entire batch data. This will look a lot more like something web-based or a little larger. It's in the design phase right now. We have a hunch of what it looks like, but it's still kind of up in the air of how it's going to work and where you'll be able to access it. You'll be able to invite people to sites or be invited to sites yourself, so that if you have 20 volunteers working on the same pile or batch throughout the week, they can all track everything that happened there in the same site, and you'll be able to see everybody's data. A big piece of launching these data dashboards is going to be building different user levels so that everyone doesn't have to see everything all the time. And so that if you have information you don't want to be public to everybody at your site, say a volunteer or a community member who's just dropping off with you, this is how we're going to parse out who can see what. If a batch didn't go perfect, that may not be information you want to share publicly with everybody. So there'll be different user levels, and you can decide who is at what level. But they'll have essentially different levels of fidelity within this data dashboard. And what we're really excited to do beyond these 3 core, we know they're going to happen things, are exploring and piloting how we democratize the use of this tool. So one of the audiences I'm really excited to explore is how we apply this tool to backyard composters. And our hunch there is that we can make it a really good learning tool to instill confidence in the composting process for people who are getting more familiar with it. So shifting some of the functionality to be a little more intuitive for a backyard composter who's a little less fluent than all of us, or other audience types, on-farm composting where this isn't their highest priority, understanding what those needs are for different users using it in a different way. We also know that we have really excellent best practice, recipe adjustment, and success indicators throughout the community composting field. We have tons of data and information. We're really excited to start incorporating that in here so that it might be able to guide you to a next best step, or at minimum, be able to allow you to know when you want to ask for help. And we want to be able to facilitate matchmaking and expert advising through the app. So someone who is a backyard composter could say, I don't know why this pile went wrong. Can I set up a video call with somebody to help me look at that data and understand it? And we think we can do a lot of growth, improvement, and confidence building by just letting somebody have access to somebody like this entire community for 20 minutes. So we're exploring what that might mean, but we think it really could be job creation, more inclusion, and starting to understand the entire impact of our composting efforts. It'd be really, really cool to understand everything going on in Rhode Island, including every single backyard composter and community garden and everything. So starting to expand into different audience groups allows us to also think a little more comprehensively about the entire ecosystem. The biggest ways you can help us: play with it, even if it's just for 10 minutes, and share every single feedback and idea you have. I guarantee anything that is in your head, we may not have heard it yet. Nothing is stupid, nothing is silly, nothing is unuseful. Every bit of feedback, as personal or specific to your process as it is enormously useful for us. I had one person send me feedback just to tell me that they organize their brown feedstocks in this specific order through their site, and they cycle through it in a circle, and they'd really love to be able to edit the drop-down menu for themselves to make it more intuitive for how they do their process. That's awesome information. That's also the exact kind of thing that someone might be like, you don't want to know that, that's too specific. I want to know that. It's super specific. It's incredibly creative and helpful. So the way you're doing things uniquely to you, I want to hear about it. I want to know how we can incorporate it. Any idea or any problem you see in the app, we want to hear about it so we can keep growing and building on it. Another piece I'm really excited to share about is after this last community composting summit, we have launched a working group within the ILSR Community Composter Coalition. So we're specifically working on data and how we collect data, capture and aggregate data, and then leverage that data to make meaningful change. So there's folks from throughout the country in this working group. Right now we're meeting about once a month. And it's pretty low lift, but it's a lot of discussion and brainstorming and getting creative together. A lot of folks are collecting this data in their own unique ways. Right now, what we're focusing on is doing a brain dump of everyone who's confident in the way they're capturing data, including the ILSR Community Compost Census. We're trying to figure out what's everybody doing and how might we start putting apples and oranges in parallel so we can tell a macro story and be a little more efficient with the asks we make of each other. So if you're a data nerd, you're a storytelling or fundraising nerd, you're interested in learning more about what's going on in this space, come join us. It's open to everybody. And we would love to have more folks helping us think creatively about this, because it is our entire national group thinking together about how we create more power amongst us. And finally, spread the word. If you know someone who might be interested in talking about this, brainstorming this, contributing to this, or funding it, we will gladly start any conversation with anybody. Our biggest barrier or challenge as we're building this is that we've been prioritizing this community, and we've been prioritizing funding through this community, which means that we keep coming up on roadblocks. So we are open to any and all help, support, creative thinking. If you know someone who might be interested in it or try it, they don't need to be a community composter. They don't need to be a composter. Anyone who might be a fun person to talk to on this, we are so excited to have conversations with people about it. So these 3 ways are fantastic. If just sharing your feedback for 5 minutes is what you've got bandwidth for, that is enormously valuable to us and is how we make this something awesome for all of us. So that's what I've got. I'm going to take a breath and pass it over to my co-founder, Baba, and open it up for any questions, ideas, or discussion we might want to have.
Thanks, Tess. And I'll turn my video on here so everyone can see me. Hello, everyone. So we did see a few questions come through in the chat, and I would like to just read those out and respond to a few of them. I think, Courtney, you were thinking about doing that as well, but I'll just read those out. So one of the first questions was, what's the difference between aerobic batch pile, bin bay batch, and aerated static pile? Those would be different options you could select on your batch type. We really see those as being something that is contained or not contained, right? A bin or a bay versus a pile. And whether it's aerated or not, are you having any forced aeration go through that pile? We have a hunch that folks might start to want to track data for each of those methods a little bit differently. But really at the moment, there's no different pathway that each of those are going to take. It's really to help us better understand how those who are working with that batch type are interacting with the software. Next question I saw in here is, can the temperature be defaulted to Fahrenheit? At the moment, it is going to default just to the first option in the list, which is Celsius. We would like to incorporate user preferences at the user level, the site level, the batch level to select, hey, I want to see this in Celsius, I want to see this in Fahrenheit, even see it in Kelvin if you really want to. But let the users decide how they want to be seeing that data point. In the database, we do store everything in Celsius just to kind of keep it all streamlined. So it should be able to default to whichever makes the most sense to you. I are also seeing a few bugs that came in the chat. Some of these we are aware of. One I'll point out to you is along the date that's stored in there. So you might be selecting today's date and you're in California, but it's showing up as tomorrow or yesterday for some reason. We think that has something to do with Greenwich Mean Time and just storing it as a centralized time. Still working that out, but in the database, it does show the date you've selected. It's just displaying a little weird. So, but comments like that, we absolutely appreciate. Please keep sending those through our way.
I also love that you sent that one, because I just spent like half an hour this afternoon driving Baba nuts trying to figure out why it was doing it to me. So it's not just you, but seriously, anytime you see something like that, like let us know. It's probably something easy or intuitive or strange happening in the coding that's simple to solve.
All right, and just taking a look at a few of these. Have we contacted Evan Edgar? That's a new name to me. Tess, you might have, but it seems like someone we would want to get in contact with. So we'll note that name and strike up a chat with them. Lloyd, if you have any more information you want to share with us about them, please do.
Baba. Hey, Baba, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Good to hear from you as well, Lloyd.
Cool. Yeah, so Evan Edgar, he's just he is a fellow here in California who's pretty involved in community composting around the state and well connected. He's very generous, knowledgeable person, and he's interested in all things composting and all things community composting. We actually had a talk from one of his associates at our northern region gathering that we had in Etna. And yeah, he's got all kinds of different funding options that he's also connected with, and yeah, he's just one of those kind of guys who's well connected, very generous, and yeah, you can tell him that we sent you, either Courtney or myself, and I mean, I'm sure he'd be happy to entertain emails and calls, and would probably be willing to offer whatever support he may have to offer. So just wanted to throw that out there as somebody who would be good for you to consider contacting.
Cool. Thank you for that, Lloyd. Yeah, we'll be sure to reach out to him, do a little name dropping, and hopefully strike up a good conversation there. I think so. Thank you for that. Tess, I think you said there was another question in the chat, but my chat keeps refreshing. If you could let us know what that is.
It's right above Lloyd's from Courtney. How can I add another user to a site that I created under my account? Is that there yet?
Gotcha. So that is part of that sharing functionality that is in our next round of development. We want that just as much as you do, to be able to share that out. So no, it's not in there presently, but we are targeting sometime this summer to have that development through the processing and QA phases and into your hands, automatically updated to the app. And we'll be sure to share out updates as soon as those additional functionalities are in play. And I think that's all that I'm seeing for questions. Seeing a few other. Oh, that was another question there. Let's see. And another question, chat, can we demonstrate how a user can see a cumulative report on all the feedstocks added at a batch from start to finish? And then the total compost sifted after you produced after you finish a batch. So yes, in the app, you can see some of that right now, and we will certainly take note of this, that each of those data points is something you would want to see in a final report for that batch. Tess, if you could ask you to bring up the slide with the feedstock data, and I can at least walk folks through a little bit there.
I was actually going to suggest I can join from my phone and pull it up.
Sure. Yeah, if you're able to do that, that sounds even better.
But if there's another question we could poke at while I'm doing that, it's going to take me a minute.
Folks are jumping
Here,
off.
I'll
Yes,
pull
thank
up
you
the
for
slide
joining. If you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out as well.
Here. I will show you this here, and we can add a little bit more sample data and resend this via email so you have it. But if you click this, if you're on your batch page and you scroll down from your temperature summary, you'll be able to see feedstock, sift, remove. If you click either of these buttons, it will go into a full summary of that category and every entry there. So there's only one example in the slide of it, and that's the temperature one. But if you click this temperature button, you'll see every single entry for temperature. If you do the same with these other guys for the other categories, it will look exactly like this with all of those entries. So it's not a clean report just yet, but you can skim through it and know what happened.
And just to add on to that, if there are additional reports that you think you'd want to generate, or maybe a specific stakeholder asks for XYZ and this home user asks for ABC, we want to know what those different data points are, so that at the click of a button, you could really generate that report and have a email, a PDF ready just to send to them at the click of a button. So we do want to know about those different reports that would be of most use to you. Total diversion, absolutely. Yes, we want to do that for your sites, for your batch, and across the entire population of community composters. We want to be able to accurately track how much we're diverting, how much we're composting, how much compost we're creating. Those are huge want to knows for us, need to knows, really. Cool. All right. Any other questions that anyone has?
Also, I can confidently say everyone on the call right now has given us fantastic feedback. So thank you, every single one of you. Yes,
All right,
Courtney.
yeah,
It
last
can
question there.
definitely be on a dashboard page in the app instead of an exported report.
I'm trying not to be the only one asking questions, but I'm definitely saying the stuff that everyone's thinking. So please, I want to open this space up.
Yeah, thank you for your questions, Courtney. We certainly appreciate them, and it will likely be an option on the dashboard before it is something that we can export. So yes, most things will start as a functionality in your app or on the in development dashboard, and then go from there to external systems.
But yeah, specific metrics on the site page, we can definitely add total diversion from this site, total pounds of compost sifted. Any other of those categories that you want to make sure we get in on the next round, please let us know. We're so into the gears on this that like sometimes the surface level obvious things don't totally occur to us anymore. Yes. And right now, sorry. Lloyd asked, would feedstock source be useful? Yes. And right now we're relying on the short form notes for that. Though we do want to build in something a little more structured for that in the long term so that you'll be able to see end to end where everything that went into a compost batch came from and where that finished compost went to. Not sure exactly how that's going to work yet, but I definitely encourage you to track stuff like that in the notes for now so we can think about how it shows up and where. What we can do, so we have a mailing list that we're restructuring right now. You can sign up for it through our website, but if Courtney, you're cool with echoing for us to the CCGS community when we do have an update blast go out, if you can resend it to your CCGS mailing list, that would probably be the best way for us to make sure that you all know. Though I will very likely include every single one of you that I do know. I just know I don't have the entire mailing list.
And to add on to the feedstock source, this actually starts to come into play as we think about incorporating things like Stop Suite, because we really want to know even which household, be able to track household diversion and be able to tell that residential subscriber where did their compost end up. Really complete the circle for keeping that material in play and repairing our soils and things like that. So yes, it is in our minds, and we aim to have that available more thoroughly in future releases.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I would be interested to offer that to my customers. My thing would be, when I'm picking up 60 or 70 customers in a day, that might get a little tricky to add that extra step of. But I mean that's just sort of ruminating here, but some way to maybe make that easier, or I don't know. I don't know. That's a conversation maybe we can have ourselves, but it'd be interesting to see how we could try and optimize a route like that and still get metrics without being bogged down in, an extra 30-second interaction with each customer.
Yeah, exactly. So Lloyd, like talking through how you track it right now for you, if it's not Stop Suite in particular, that's really helpful for us so we can know what integration we need to build. So if that looks like a spreadsheet for you, for us, it looks like a clipboard and then that goes into a spreadsheet and it takes me a ton of time. Whatever your process is, that's going to be really helpful for us so we can build for it so that it becomes like a single button click or a single transfer of something you've already done. I would really love for my handwritten clipboards to be able to scan in as a photo and have OCR text recognition and have all that data import itself with me giving it one final check that it's right. So we have a million options for how we treat this. And the more we know about how you do it right now and what would make your life easy, the better we can build for it.
Awesome. Yeah, mine's just kind of a real rudimentary spreadsheet right now. I'll just show a picture real quick. But yeah, then we can. I definitely like to talk with you about that. So.
Great. Yeah. Please do share that. And in the same way, we would like paper forms to be, photo captured and automatically upload. We would be thinking very similarly to any existing spreadsheet data that you have. A lot of us share very similar data points. It is technically possible to have computers do that. We just got to better understand it and really trial it out.
This is awesome, Lloyd. Thank you for sharing. Let's definitely set up a call and have you walk us through how you do this.
Great. Yeah, and I didn't have a chance to redact it, so obviously there's first and last names on there, so everybody on the call please respect that privacy. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy to share.
All right. I think that seems like most all the questions. My chat has a thing of scrolling all the way back up to the top when I get something new in. Okay, and I'm not seeing any more questions. So one final little tidbit of data I would like to share is I've been kind of keeping an eye on our database during this call and watching plenty of folks be adding the app, starting to trial it out. So thank you very much for getting involved with this. We appreciate it very much. So thank you. And thank you for letting us share this with you and being part of this journey.
One more thing, Baba, can you clearly demonstrate how someone can submit feedback to the app through the account page after this call?
So like another video or
like if I'm in the app and then I can submit feedback through the app. How do I do that again?
Give me 1 second. We have a slide. I'm not sure exactly how many pages it shows up on, but it definitely shows up on like your home way back at the beginning site summary page. This little profile button way up in the top right gives you all your account details, and this contact us button will take you to a really simple contact form that goes straight to Baba and my email. Does that answer the question, Courtney?
It does. You're the best. Thank you.
Fabulous. And Courtney has these slides, so we can send them around. This one is specific to you all, but I'm also going to be making a quick start guide that's very similar to this and incorporates video. I realized in the past few days while trying to capture screen recordings that there were glitches that were going to make that not look right. So when we have those things solved out, I'm going to start doing some screen recordings actually going through what it looks like to click those buttons, and so you know where they are and it's easy to find. But please feel free to reach out to us. Right now, if you use our contact form on your website, on our website, same thing, you will just get me and Baba, so don't feel like you're talking to a stranger. But you can always hit both of us up at support@epicrenewal.org. Courtney can hand you off, or you can search for Epic Compost Management or use that contact us button in the app. Either way, you're going to get the two of us, and we're really excited to keep talking and adore all of you and are excited to make this work amazingly for you over the next couple years. So please do stay in touch. Baba, you send that to me only if you want to send that to the full chat. And that's the link to the page about it. So updates will be there, and the opportunity to sign up for the newsletter is there. I'm not going to spam all of you unless you opt in. I will let Courtney do that with all of you. But anyone who wants to be on it, just let me know and I'll make sure you're on it. Well, awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you, Baba. Thank you to the ECM, also for, making our lives easier. There is an app for that. And we look forward to just some future iterations of this and, getting you the support that your team needs also to provide user support far into the future. We understand that that also is time, and the more users we get, that is becoming a bigger and bigger commitment. So, yeah, we're really grateful for the demonstration today, and we hope that was useful for everybody. And please get in touch with Baba and Tess if you have any more questions.
And thank you, all of you, for being our best and first and biggest partner on making this real. Courtney's been listening to us talk about this much longer than CCGS has existed. And it's been a total privilege to get to build it with all of you. You're all fantastic, and we're so impressed and proud of the work you've achieved over this program.
All right, with that, I'm going to end the recording.